In this video, we're going to be looking at naming of ketones. Now, if you're watching this video and you haven't watched the first part, which talk about naming of aldehydes, then you can check that in our playlist. Now let's get going. Ketone as one of the carbonyl group, like we said, carbonyl group have a carbon that is doubly bonded to an oxygen, and then we have two bonds here. If this is R and this also is R, then we can say that this is a ketone. This is a ketone. And when we have a carbon doubly bonded to the oxygen, and we have a R and a hydrogen there, then this is an aldehyde. Aldehyde, like we did mention in our previous video. So in this video, we'll look at naming of ketones. And if you're watching this video too, it means you have probably done naming of alkanes. Now it is very simple. When we are talking about naming of ketones, we replace the terminal E. If this is an alkane, we replace the terminal E in quotes by ONE in ketones. ONE. And this one we're going to call it ON. Let's not call it one, we'll call it ON for now. Alright, so let's look at an example. If we are talking about alkane and we have something like this, in alkane we are going to number this by starting from this place 1, 2, 3. So we are going to call this propane. What if it's a ketone? We have this. Now what distinguishes it is that we're going to have carbon being doubly bonded to an oxygen, and so there is our alkyl group over. We have an alkyl group over here. We also have an alkyl group over here. So we are very sure this is a ketone. Now the carbon pairing the oxygen is so carbon number 2. So we name this again, starting with the numbering. This is 2 and 3. Now carbon 2 has a doubly bonded oxygen to itself, so it bears the functional group. So we name this 2-propanone. So just like we said, the terminal E over here is replaced by ONE, which is a ketone. Let's look at some other example. What about this? Alright, the first thing we have to do is to find the longest chain, just like we're doing an alkane. So we'll start by numbering from here 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now in naming alkanes, we make sure that when we have a functional group in the longest chain, it has a number, that is the number of the carbon to be very low. So that's how we start from the far right, numbering is 1, 2, 3, and 4. So in this case, we know that carbon number 2 has the functional group of ketones, so it is very simple. It's going to be 2-butanone. If this were to be an alkane, then it's going to be what? A butane. But over here it is what? Butanone. We are replacing the terminal E with ONE. Don't forget that. Now, what if we have more than one of the ketone functional group present? Let's see. Presence of more than one of the functional groups present, just like this one right here. We have a double bonded O here, double bonded oxygen. Alright, so how do we name this? Because we have two of the ketone functional group there, and then we said anytime we have a ketone in there, we have the ending to be O-N-E, which is on. Because there is two over here, we're going to be calling it dione. Dione. Anytime we have two other functional groups in there. So what do we do? Quickly, we count the longest chain. We count the longest chain. It's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So the corresponding alkane is going to be hexane. So when it's ketone, it's going to be hexanon. Because the ketone is 2 over there, it's going to be dione. Now we have carbon 2 and 4 having the functional group, so it's going to be 2, 4, and we'll bring our dash hexane dione. Now you can try this out. Feel free to pause the video and try this out. Alright, let's name the longest chain. So this is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So it is called hexane. It's going to be heptane if it is an alkane. Now let's find the number of the oxo groups over there, which is talking about the ketone. We have 2, 4, and then 5, we bring our dash. It is heptane 7, so it's going to be heptane trione 2, 4, 5 heptane trione. Alright, what about this? And then we have how do you name this? Remember, we have 2 of the ketone functional group there, so we start naming from one of them. We count from here 1, 2, and 3. Don't forget this is cyclohexane. So we just try to find the number of the oxo functional groups there. So this is going to be 1, 3 cyclo dash hexane dione. What if we have other functional group like alkene inside it? Let's look at an example. Let's see, we have CH3, CH, and doubly bonded to. Okay, just remember that the ketone functional group has a higher priority than the alkene, so if we want to number these, we will start from the right. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Alright, so the corresponding alkene is going to be hexane. But remember, we have an alkene in there, so let's see how we go about it. The alkene functional group is on carbon number 4, so let's see 4 hexane, and then remember the ketone, so we bring 2 on. or we can name it otherwise by saying this is hex 4 in 2 on. Good. But we have to know that there are some common names of these chemicals. If we have this, what is 2-propanone, we can call it acetone. It is known as acetone, common name, acetone. What about this? What about this? It is known as acetophenone, acetophenone. And then we also have others like benzophenone. This is commonly known as benzophenone, but the actual name, which is the IUPAC name, is, okay, let's read the common name. This is benzophenone, but the IUPAC name is going to be okay, let's look at it. Because we have 2 phenyl groups over here, it's going to be diphenyl hexanone. So let's say diphenyl hexanone. Now let's try naming the following, but we have to take note that anytime we have a compound or a molecule in which we have a higher priority functional group inside, then for ketone it will have the prefix oxo for ketone, and then aldehyde is known as formal, and sometimes it is also known as methanol. Yeah, so let's try naming the following compound. And one thing we also have to take note of is that aldehyde has a higher priority than ketone. So we follow that when we are naming. So for the first one here, we'll start by counting the number of carbon atoms that form the longest chain. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Alright, so the longest chain here with the corresponding alkane is going to be pentane. So in this case, we said that aldehyde have a higher priority than ketone, so it's going to be a pentanal. So what will be the name? It's going to be 4-oxo. Remember, ketone is prefix oxo if it is lower in a compound. So 4-oxo pentanal. 4-oxo pentanal. Alright, what about this one? So let's start by numbering 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Alright, on carbon number 3 we have a methyl group, and on carbon number 4 we have an oxo group. And let's try naming so that we have it arranged in alphabetical order. So it's going to be 3-methyl, 4-oxo, oxopentanal. Again, I mentioned that aldehyde has a higher functional priority than ketone. Alright, so let's go here. Okay, let's name this for easy reference. So this is 1, 2, and this is 3. So let's go to number 3. In number 3, we have an aldehyde there, but we can also see that there is a carboxylic acid, which means there is a higher priority functional group than the aldehyde. So in this case, we're not going to call it a pentanal or just like we saw in the others, but it's going to be formal, just like we saw here, formal or methanol. So what will be the name? We'll start numbering from the carboxylic acid, which is 1, 2, 3. So this is 3 formal benzoic acid. Or what if we want to use the methanol? If we want to use the methanol, we can as well call it M-methanol, methanol benzoic acid. M-methanol benzoic acid is simple, that is methanol benzoic acid. Anytime we have a benzene ring, the third position is known as meta, and then the fourth position is going to be para. Alright, what about number 4? Let's start by numbering from the aldehyde carbon 1, 2, 3. Alright, so we'll write in alphabetical order. We know that our longest chain is propane with corresponding alkane, so this is going to be 3 bromo, 2 methyl propanol, good. Number 5 we know is a cyclohexane. Now we have alcohols attached to it, and anytime we have alcohol there, we're going to call it hydroxy. Let's call it hydroxy. So how do we name this? We just look at the orientation. Over here we have the 2 hydroxy groups pointing away, that is the dash, that means they are pointing away, so it is a cis distance, it's a cis orientation, so this is cis, and then we have the numbering starting from the ketone, so we have a 1, 2, 3, so cis2, 3 dihydroxy, which means there are 2 dihydroxy cyclo cis2,3 dihydroxy cyclohexanone. Alright, so this is how we name ketones. If you like this video, don't forget to subscribe and also share the links to your friend. Thank you.